hereby call the meeting of the Administration and Public Works Committee of the Evanston City Council to order. We have a quorum. I'll be filling in for Chair Braithwaite this evening. Begin with Alderman Nguyen. Will you do a motion for the minutes, please?
I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 26, 2016. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Rainey, will you take the payroll?
Yes, sir. The Evanston City Payroll roll through July 24. We'd like to recommend it to council, $3,033,665.25. Bills too?
Sure.
2016 bills through August 16, $6,371,320.53, with credit card activity totaling through June 30, totaling $206,683.86. Request approved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Holmes?
A 3.1, contract with A-Lamp Concrete Contractors in the amount of $991,458. This is for parking lot improvement project bid number 16-55. Move approval.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Nguyen? A32?
A 3.12, I move approval of a contract with A-Lamp Concrete Contractors, Inc. for 2016 alley paving project. This is in the amount of $1,231,874.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, with leave, the Assistant City Manager would like to discuss this.
Would just like to, thank you, Mr. Chair, would just like to call note to the fact that we did take the alleys, the special assessment alleys, to the county today for approval and actually had a challenge on one of them. And it was the same alley 1520 where the one multi-unit resident had a concern over a variety of issues, and they came to the county. Then that's a proper venue. And so we have a little bit of research to do according to the judge. So we would like to do that research. We would still like to move forward with the bid because we've added the northwestern, the alley adjacent to the stadium. So already the contract is sufficient with A-Lamp. Checked with the with Public Works. We don't see there being any issue with the per unit charges as bid, so there will be no impact to any of the residents participating. So we would like to move forward so we can meet the fall schedule and get the alleys paved that we have. So that would be 18 and 19 would be the ones that would move forward. 15, 18, 15, 19, and 15, 20 we hope will move forward in 2 weeks when we go back. Correct? Mr. Trito, Assistant City Attorney, was at the county today. So if you had any specific questions, the question specifically was, could we do it based on an assessed value? And the city has never done that, but we are going to do the research and provide it back to the judge and say this is what the impact would be.
Alderman Rainey?
And would the assessed value be spread across all the adjacent properties or just the building?
Yeah, it would be across. The judge asked what would be the cost if it was based on an assessed value. Would it be less for this property compared to the others? So again, this came down to the same discussion we had before, that if one property gets their amount reduced, either the city picks it up or all the other property owners have to pick it up, and we didn't feel that would actually create a need to redo the petition, because the petition was signed based on a given spread of the costs. And also, using assessed value doesn't necessarily reflect the utilization of the alley. So the city has used its current process of either linear footage or unit for a very long time. We will go through the motions. We will talk to the judge and move forward, we hope. And if there's any change to that, we'll report to the council. But that we would recommend the bid go forward. We just want, in case you heard anything via residents, we wanted you to be aware that we're talking with the county on this one. First time.
Alderman Holmes?
And so, Marty, if we would have to do it that way, then what would that do to the rest of the properties, not just in that area, but for the rest of the city of Evanston?
It would have no impact to the rest of the city of Evanston, but it would open up that can of worms that anyone would then, basically, why do the special assessment process if we're going to then have a property assessment challenge possible each and every time? Then it just turns it into more of a property tax situation. We use it as a special assessment, and it goes through the county, but one of our other options then would be to do special service areas instead, and that is a property tax. We don't recommend that because we do 2 to 3 alleys a year. We would have special service areas all over the city. We will follow up with a Friday packet note to council, especially the alderman of the ward, about how this shapes up. Again, it was really more for information purposes in case any of you were contacted regarding this. This property owner looked at every type of challenge, and this was one that hadn't been brought up yet. And so we will track it down and go back and talk to the judge.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Rainey?
Well, given the properties and compared to the property that's challenging, it could conceivably be that the building suffers more financially this way. It's possible.
It could be, but again, we just are very cautious about the idea that using assessed value.
Well, I understand the concept is a challenge, but they could be shooting themselves in the foot with it.
The other part of the concern that we would like to continue to move forward is there's CDBG funds being used, and our point is that the property owner could have been paying $16,000 without any additional assistance, and it's down to $9,000, and so we would like to move forward. We've been trying to do CDBG funded alleys for a few years, and we would really like to move this one forward. So we will work with the judge and see if we can't get a resolution.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Rainey, A33.
We're being asked to refer to the council a contract with Stanley Consultants for engineering design services for the Main Street Corridor Improvement Project in the amount of $75,000. And everybody should be aware that this includes bike lanes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Holmes, A34.
Contract with construction, consulting, and distribution services for the washroom renovations at Greenwood Street and Lee Street beach houses in the amount of $207,000. The project was budgeted at $120,000 in funding year 2016. Additional funding will be made available through the delay of the Dempster Street Beach House window door replacement of $60,000 and the delay of the ETHS Church Street bike path improvement of $30,000, both of which are proposed to be constructed in future years. So move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Nguyen, 35.
Yes. This is a motion to recommend actual annual user charge for 2016 with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago for disposal of sludge generated as part of the water treatment process. The amount has been budgeted at $293,000.
Second.
Alderman Rainey.
Mr. Chairman, in looking at Table 1 on 177, I know we've talked about this before, but 2012, 2014, and 2015, we paid more than the charge, correct? I'm reading this correctly. And remaining due of user's charge was, minus 63,000 plus minus 200. Did we get that money back?
With leave, Mr. Stoneback.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, committee members. Dave Stomack, Public Works Director. Yes, we did get that funding back.
So we were notified of that.
We were notified of it. Sometimes we actually take a check, and sometimes we apply it towards the next year's payments. But we always make sure we balance
I
out.
thought you were going to say we only take cash. All right, so, okay, that's what I was wondering, all right. So it really fluctuates based on the amount of sludge produced?
Yes, and that's a result of how turbid the lake is.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. I was sure we received the money, but I,
Yes.
Certified last year.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The mayor's actually requested that we hold item A36, so it'll be on the next meeting's agenda. We're on Alderman Nguyen, item 37.
Chair, do we know why?
You want
Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, the mayor asked that we review a little bit more of the history and whether or not because it's a single source, whether or not there's anything we could do to make it a better deal. So we will review the history and go through both what the ordinance says and why we do single source in this case. Even though there are other tow companies out there, it has to do with the yard, the requirement to have a impound yard. But we will go back through and put a few more of those details into the report and bring it back to the committee at the first meeting in September.
Mr. Chair? may I say
Sure,
something?
Alderman Rainey.
Well, when I read it, I was shocked and thought there's going to be a mistake because for the next 3 years, I mean, there are no increases over what we're paying now. I mean, it I mean, that to me is very strange, but at least they did that. So I can't wait for a full-blown conversation. And this is up, our current contract is up July 31st.
It is up,
It's
but
over.
we have been able to work on a month-to-month basis with them. We do not envision them changing any fees. It's been a long-term partnership.
Yeah. All right.
Further discussion?
And I'm sorry, and they have been informed. They are aware of our goal, our desire to hold.
Okay, that item will be held until the next meeting. Alderman Nguyen, item 37.
This is a motion that we recommend a one-year sole source agreement with CDW-G for purchase of U-City email system from Google. This is in the amount of $284,200.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Wait.
Aye.
Do you have a question, Alderman Rainey?
Sorry, yeah. Could we get some explanation of this? Is our email going to look different at cityofevanston.org, et cetera? 'Cause I'm a Hillary Clinton alderman. I use my private email because I can't stand the current email.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Erica Storley, Deputy City Manager. First of all, I would like to correct the price. It's $105,000.
I'm sorry, I was coughing.
No problem, no
I
problem.
realized that after I read it.
As far as email services, your email will look a little bit different because we are going to the Gmail platform and away from, the Outlook client version that people have been used to using in the past, but that's more for people that are using the full-blown version on a computer. Most of us are reading email on a tablet or a smartphone, and there will be no change in the experience that you're having with that use. But as far as using the full version of the email platform, you will be using Gmail versus Outlook.
And when do you think this will happen?
We hope by the end of the year.
So will we have to have some training or something on that? Because I'm going to still be using laptop, not on my phone or anything else or my email for the
Yes,
city
there will
anyway.
be a lot of training for all city users. When we did the testing with some of the city staff, we just did a straw poll familiarity. What are you using at home? More than half of city users are using Gmail for personal use, so there was some familiarity with it in the past, but there's still going to be many users who are going to need to be trained up on how to use the new system. But when we were looking at the options between Microsoft and Google, The new Microsoft interface is also different and from what people are used to, being that it's web-based, et cetera. So there would have been a learning curve either way, but we felt that the learning curve with Google was minimized.
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I think it'll be good.
It will be a great win for the city, even though there may be some short-term pain.
There always is.
It would be great if you could delay it until April.
We'll see what we can do. Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Rainey, item 3.8.
We're being asked to recommend to the council authorization for request of qualifications for architectural design services for the Robert Crown Center.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Holmes, A39.
Approval of the sidewalk cafe for Dave's New Kitchen, which is located at 815 Noyes Street.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Nguyen, 310.
Approval for Sidewalk Cafe for Leonides Chocolate Cafe, which is located at 1907 Central Street.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Rainey.
Approval of a sidewalk cafe Solwich at 1634 Orrington Avenue. Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Holmes.
A contract with the Lakota Group for Park Community Outdoor Space Scorecard Project in the amount of $40,000.
Second.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a question, too. I don't know. Alderman Rainey, if you want to begin.
Well, is somebody here to answer?
Bob's here.
I guess I have no idea what you used to select these, but there was not one 8th Ward park selected, and I think a lot of those need evaluation, and I want to know how you selected them.
Good evening, members of the committee. Bob Dornicker, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. The group was selected, the 40 parks were selected. Actually, we worked with the Parks and Rec Board. We tried to take the parks that were the highest users that we had determined through some internal analysis for those sites. Also in my memo, I talked about the fact that in our memo, we talked about the fact that, this is like phase one. So we would do these parks this year, turn around, collect the data, and then move to the second remaining. It's close to another 40 sites that we have to finish.
Well, I would argue that maybe if some of the parks aren't as used as some of the board members think, maybe they're the ones that ought to be on the scorecard. Brummel Park is heavily used, and I cannot imagine that it's not on there. Now, granted, Brummel Park is a Ridgeville Park, but you've got other Ridgeville parks on there. Explain the presence of the two schools on, and
So
what that.
As part of the scorecard, when we went back to 2015, when the project was first proposed, there was discussion to work with both the two school districts as well as the Ridgeville Park District as well as the Lighthouse Park District. So what was done was that we took a look at two of the school sites that we'd worked with Dr. Gorin on and determined that those are two school sites that are heavily used by the department for both programming and the community. So those two sites were the ones that were selected.
I'm suspecting that the reason for that, that since you did choose those, that's a reason not to select any other South Evanston. I feel really that South Evanston got slighted on this one, and I would like you to reconsider and include some of those other parks. When I looked at this, I thought there's got to be another page. It can't be possible that there is not one park south of Oakton listed. It's shocking.
Alderman Holmes.
Did Ridgeville have input You met with Dr. Gorin, so did you meet?
We did talk to the director, Brian Rosinski, about the parks. We wish we could have added more to that, of course, for the first phase, but we did cut it off at the first 40.
I mean, we've had big issues at Clyde Brummel Park because it was overused by people playing soccer, totally destroyed the turf there, and I mean, that's a city park. Clyde Brummel Park is a city park. Maybe the board doesn't even know about Dobson Brummel Park. They might, I mean, there are, a lot of people don't know. That's a very nice sized park, which is heavily used by the neighbors.
I understand, Alderman Rennie.
Mr. Assistant City Manager?
Bob, of the fee, how much is associated with the number of parks versus the whole, the whole analysis? And if you added one park or took one park away, what does it do to the fee?
Actually, I'm uncertain how we would change the fee. Pretty much it was based on some of the size of the parks when they took a look at the acreage, so it was based on that for how the fees were determined. If we were to adjust a park or two, we could probably do that throughout the analysis for this time.
All righty, I see the city manager coming up behind you. Just to,
Well, here he comes.
Was there any discussion about including aldermen in the conversation with the Parks Board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. City Manager.
Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, good evening. If you recall, when we talked about this probably 12 months ago, this was something that came from the Parks and Recreation Commission. They have been frustrated that we've not been doing more parks planning. The council's had discussions about this, and they're the ones that came up with this idea of a scorecard. The money that we put in the budget, we thought we were going to be able to cover with those funds all city parks, all Ridgeville parks, as well as all the District 65 and 202 parks. The reality is we got bids back and they didn't match that. So, excuse me, I ran downstairs. We would be happy to come back with a price for everything. Our intent always was to do everything, and only because of cost did we have to try to, as Mr. Dornicker was saying just earlier, divide this into two areas. But the intention all along, at the direction and the request of the Parks and Recreation Board, was to do this as a citywide plan. What are all of the green spaces? What are all the activity spaces, regardless of ownership? What are the public spaces available to the Evanston community? And how can we best leverage the need citywide? So, Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I think we probably could hold this until the 12th and try to get a price for the rest of the city and try to do this all in one step.
Yeah, Mr. Dornicker, as far as the plan for how long would this take to get done, how long do you think?
So the initial plan was to try to have it all finished by the end of October so that we could take a look at it for
capital planning purposes?
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, I'd like to see that happen so we can actually use this to inform the discussion come budget season as well. And that's feasible with the vendor as well?
That is correct, right? Yes, it is.
Because if we can come back later, and actually get the rest done, we can, follow up with that next year if you think there's no sense. But I mean, in your estimation, Mr. Dornicker, would you say probably, I mean, it's in looking at the report that was provided by the consultant or by the vendor, it ranks kind of the most need. Now, without considering all of the parks we have, I mean, these are our most heavily used parks, so would we be able to get a fair picture of the greatest need in our heaviest used parks?
We believe that's correct. We believe that we could get a really good picture from the information that they would provide us for phase one of the project.
And the reality is we know part of the answer. Part of the answer is that our parks need a tremendous amount of investment. And not only our parks, but Ridgeville's parks, District 65's athletic areas, District 202's athletic areas. So again, Mr. Chair, we can move forward at the council's direction with what's before you. We could come back in a month with a plan for the full amount. I think the reality of the 2017 budget cycle, there are already projects I think that the council has identified that are longstanding that will likely take up much of the general obligation fund issue there. From a staff's perspective, we really see this as a building block for the next city council as it moves forward with very longer term capital capital planning, because clearly the issue of how are we going to get enough money to meet all of our needs is a very, very big question. And to have this good sort of baseline data is what we were shooting for. So again, I don't know that there's a right way or a wrong way to proceed. I think it's really the council's decision.
Alderman Nguyen?
I'd like to wait until September so we can get and find out how much it would cost to do all of them, because I think if you...
Bob knows the answer.
Do you know the
apparently.
number?
It's $80,000.
That
So-
makes sense, it's half. Because I think in some ways, to me, it would be better to get all of them assessed simultaneously, because if we get a first half, then somehow in our minds, that's not going to... I'd like to see them... I looked at the Oak Park report. It's very, very interesting. But I think it would be better for us in terms of overall planning to get all of them done at once, so we have them all included in a document together.
And Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you're going to hear later this evening our mid-year budget report. Things are doing generally okay. So if this is something you'd like to do, we can make adjustments in the capital budget in order to fund the full amount.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes. You're talking about making changes, need for changes to all the parks in Evanston. When you take and draw a red line down Oakton and say not one city or Ridgeville Park is going to be looked at south of Oakton when you've got 36 sites citywide, and in addition tonight, we're paying over we're being asked to spend over $1 million, almost $1.5 million on Central Street streetscape, and you're leaving out every park in the south end of town. It's an affront, I believe, to the south end of town. I know they didn't mean it. I just don't think they think about it. So I am asking everyone to support Alderman Nguyen's motion, and let's include everybody. I wouldn't have felt this way if there had been 2 parks in South Evanston, but you completely redlined the entire south end of town, and I find that inappropriate.
And Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I think Mr. Dornicker explained the process. And there was
In terms of the surplus funds, you're saying you haven't, there's, reading the financial report, there's another $40,000 you can find out. I mean, we could make the recommendation to just fund this right now to try to get it done before the budget process.
And that's how I hear Alderman
And
Nguyen's.
I think we should.
So do you want to make that motion?
I would make the
Okay.
motion. Yeah, I would make the rather than wait until September 12th, if we know that we have the funds right now, I move that we include every green space, every bit of green space in Evanston, and our understanding is the amount is approximately $80,000.
Second.
Second, and Mr. Chair, even James Park isn't on here.
James Park's not here.
What?
It's on here.
Where?
It's Robert E. James Park. It's just under R. Or it says Robert E. James Park. It's under the list. Under K, I'm sorry, before K, but.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I take it back, there's one park, which is the biggest park in the entire city of Evanston.
Again, you're not hearing any complaint from us. You gave us an amount of money to work with.
Let's move
Okay,
on.
before
You got
people
it. Let's
change their
go.
mind.
Let's vote.
Thank you.
So, no, I think we're all happy to see this. Thank you for this. Let's go ahead with the 80,000 recommendation, the full list, or all the parks in the city. So all those in favor say aye of
Aye.
the amended motion. Any opposed? Any of those in, sorry, in the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Nguyen, item A4. I'm sorry, wrong.
Yeah.
No, that's right,
That's
A4. Right.
Yes, this is a motion to recommend Resolution 62R16, authorizing the city manager to execute a bike corral parking agreement with Everyday Cycles and Motion, which is located at 941 Chicago Avenue in the 3rd Ward.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Rainey, A5.
Yes, sir. Resolution 55R16, we're being asked to recommend to the council that we authorize the manager to execute an agreement with IDOT for federal participation in construction of the Safe Routes to School project. It's a matching grant, and its estimated cost is $110,000. 80% will be paid by the federal grant. Will be responsible for $22,000, the city's local share. Move approval.
Second. Mrs. X. Now, will they issue a ticket if someone's speeding for too long? That's what I'd like to know. I'm sorry. They have these machines in Europe. These "your speed is" signs. If you continue speeding for a period of time, then it takes a picture of your license plate,
Yes.
and it issues you a ticket.
Excellent.
But I've talked to staff about that, and apparently those machines are much more expensive. But I think in a school zone, it's worth it.
Yeah, I do too.
Alderman Rainey?
I'm sure did others get an email from another company saying that they could do this very same thing and it would be a much more secure machine, not subject to vandalism for a much less cost?
No.
I don't remember getting it.
I thought everybody got it.
No,
I don't know why it picked me up.
might be in my spam file. I
Did
don't-
the staff get it?
I don't know. Anybody get it? I can tell you. There's a conversation there.
We were still on the last agenda item.
I'll take it off the consent agenda, the last. So,
You ready?
any city engineers here? Ms. Biggs? Oh. Rajiv?
Yes, Alderman Rainey.
An email from a company called Radar something. Did you get an email from them?
I don't
regarding
recall.
the cost of our project?
I don't recall getting an email. This will be part of the IDOT bid. We have specified.
I was wondering about, okay,
Yeah.
so we've got some centralized regional price?
Per the IDOT, we have specified a specific unit, the ones we're using right now,
all right.
and IDOT has agreed to it.
All right, that's the answer. All right, okay. But I'm going to send you the email that I
Sure.
got. Okay.
Any further discussion?
I think this is a great idea.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. This is Alderman Holmes, A38.
A36?
I'm sorry, my fault. In front. A6, I apologize.
Isn't it 6? Okay. Resolution 60-R-16, authorizing the city manager to execute an easement agreement with Northwestern University for installation of Sheridan Road light fixtures. These fixtures will improve pedestrian lighting. There's an initial one-time easement fee of $303,686.64 for the entire 25-year easement. It will be collected prior to the right-of-way permit being issued. Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, this is a motion to recommend Resolution 58R16, amending the 2016 budget from $304,949,806 to $306,336,901.
Second.
With leave, Mr. Assistant City Manager.
Just for the public benefit and to be sure, this increase in the budget does not reflect an increase in costs to the taxpayers. This is an increase in spending authority as a result of grants and also an increase in spending authority because of a change in timing of debt service payments, and that was through a refinancing that saved the city substantial funds. So.
Good, thank you.
Excellent.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Rainey, item A8.
Thank you. Recommending Resolution 64R16 to the council. It authorizes the lease of a one-bedroom apartment at the Service Center to Jonathan Schmidt, September 1, 2016 through May 31st, 2017. After that, he may continue his lease on a month-to-month basis. Move
Second.
approval.
Second.
Quick question. Do we advertise this to all employees, or how did it, Eric, I don't know if you want to answer, or how did Mr. Schmidt apply for it?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This apartment has been usually in the past utilized by people who have relocated from other areas. And previously, Oscar Murillo was renting it. He moved here from California for the fellowship. But the apartment is available to all city employees, and Mr. Schmidt is a 30-year employee of the police department, and he is planning to retire, I think, in the next year. So he needed a place, and he asked if it was available, and we offered it to him. But we do not send out a mass email to the city employees saying, this is available. It was utilized when Oscar vacated it over the summer by summer youth who were meeting in there for meeting space and things like that. So it's been occupied in the interim. So, any other questions? Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Holmes, A9.
Ordinance 104-0-16, amending the wheel tax to provide for a discounted rate for seniors paying mid-year. The wheel tax currently is $75. Seniors and disabled residents are eligible for 50% discount, which means that they pay $37.50. However, the seniors and disabled discount currently does not apply to the reduced rate. Therefore, staff is recommending the city code to allow seniors and disabled 50% to apply for a half-year rate, which will be $18.75. Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Nguyen, A10.
Yes, I move approval of Ordinance 97-016, decreasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for Dash S Corporation doing business as the Funky Monk. This is for introduction.
Second.
Alderman Rainey.
Second. Mr. Chair, for those that have closed businesses, can we suspend the rules and just take action on them tonight?
With me as well.
Any have problem?
Alderman Nguyen, do you want to
That'd be fine. This would be.
amend your motion? Just for action as opposed to introduction?
I would make this for both introduction and for action.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Rainey, A11.
Yeah, decreasing the ordinances 98-016, decreasing the number of C1 licenses for 27 Live. At 1012 Church Street, they've permanently closed and therefore not renewing. Move introduction and action.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Holmes.
Ordinance 99-0-16, decreasing the number of Class C1 liquor licenses for Bangles and Lace, Evanston doing business as Bangles and Lace. Staff recommends, they are requesting a downgrade of its from C1 to C. This is for introduction.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Nguyen, A13.
Yes, this is the motion ordinance, ordinance 100-016, increasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for Bangers and Lace, Evanston doing business as Bangers and Lace. This is the change to a Class C license from the Class C1. I move introduction.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Alderman Rainey, A14.
Mr. Chairman, should I do 15 too?
Sure.
Okay. Ordinance 105-016 is decreasing the number of Class D licenses for Addis Ababa at 1322 Chicago Avenue. They are permanently closed and not renewing. This is for introduction and action.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Ordinance 106-016, decreasing Class D license for 800 Degrees, doing business as 800 Degrees at 812 Church. It is permanently closed and not renewing.
Second.
Do you want to, for action in?
For action too. Introduction and action.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. And we're actually moving on. That's the conclusion of our normal business. We have one item for discussion, which is our benchmarking ordinance. My understanding, there was a number of individuals that actually wanted to speak that were going to arrive late. Did anyone in the audience want to speak to this before we begin the discussion? Okay. Mr. Jensen?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kumar Jensen. I'm the Environmental Project Coordinator in the Public Works Agency for the City of Evanston. On the July 25th AMPW meeting, there were a few concerns and questions raised when we brought the ordinance for introduction, and so this presentation is a response to some of those concerns. So here's a list of the 4 main concerns that were brought up. I'll just go through them real quickly. The first was the concern to do some additional outreach to potentially affected buildings to make sure that they've been included in the ordinance development process and we're aware of the ordinance. The other one was the question of what type of support will be provided to cover buildings. So once they're required to comply with a potential ordinance, what support would the city and its partners provide to them? And then there was also a question about whether or not the city staff could collect utility information directly from each individual utility. And so in this case, we're talking about NICOR and ComEd, and then provide that information directly to affected buildings. And then the last one was a request to remove the $50 fine from the ordinance. So back in March of 2015, the Utilities Commission, headed by Dick Lanyon, chaired by Dick Lanyon, came to AMPW and gave a short presentation requesting support from AMPW to move forward with the development of a benchmarking ordinance. The committee gave that approval, and since then, Dick has led a public stakeholder engagement process with the support of city staff to work on not only researching and looking at what other communities have done for their benchmarking ordinances, but also reaching out to potentially affected buildings and professionals in Evanston who have experience with this type of building energy performance. And so this timeline, as well as attachments 4 and 5, provided a detailed overview of the exact things that the Utilities Commission Working Group and city staff worked on to engage different members of the public. And so as you can see here, starting in June of 2015, the city issued a press release to call stakeholders to participate in a working group. And we held that process all the way through July of this year, which we closed with a public comment period. So back in April of this year, city staff drafted an ordinance and then issued a call for public comment. And so the details of that public comment are listed in attachments 4 and 5. We actually just included the exact comments. One of the other questions that was brought up was what type of support will be provided to those buildings that would have to comply with the ordinance. City staff, in looking at what other cities had done and what we think would be the most supportive and helpful for buildings who will have a range of experience with energy performance, we would certainly develop a training manual that would be focused on helping buildings not only understand what their building usage means, but also on how they would have to comply with the ordinance, as well as how they would sign up for Portfolio Manager, which is the free online platform that data would be required to be reported through, and then also how to work with the individual utilities in requesting the utility data that they would need. We've also been in conversations with the U.S. Green Building Council in Illinois chapter, which is a nonprofit that administers the LEED Green Building Ordinance. And so they have a strong regional network of building energy professionals and building owners. And so what they've done for the city of Chicago is they've developed a really unique partnership where they rely on that network of professionals to provide, for the most part, pro bono support to each individual building that requests it. And so they've done that in a variety of ways, and they've reached out to the city staff and the Utilities Commission and said they're interested in doing that same type of program here in Evanston. And so a couple things they do very well are drop-in office hours. They also conduct online trainings, and they'll provide pro bono professional support. And so what they do is they will recruit professionals who have experience with energy benchmarking and water benchmarking in the region, and then train those professionals to provide support directly to buildings. So it'll provide the opportunity for building owners and representatives to learn from knowledge professionals if they don't have those individuals on their own staff. And so there was also the question about whether or not the city could collect utility data directly or request utility data directly from each utility. We did reach out to both NICOR and ComEd for responses. Their verbatim responses are detailed in attachment 2. ComEd said that they are not willing to provide an additional service where they would provide data directly to the city. And the primary reason for that is they have developed a separate program that is a self-service tool that's geared directly towards building owners who are interested in this information. And so it's just an online platform that you can sign up for using your account credentials, and then you can request this data directly from that platform without having to do an email exchange or request data directly from a person. It's actually pretty automated. And then NICOR said that they would be willing to comply with providing the city individual building owner data, but only with a written authorization from each individual property. And so the way the ordinance is currently written, that would be about 700 buildings. And so staff believe that it would be impractical for city staff to solicit that individual data and then input that data for each property into each individual account. We think it could take close to about a full FTE just to do that process, because it would actually create some additional work. It wouldn't just be requesting data and requesting an authorization. It would be you'd have to actually gain access to these individual accounts that each building would be creating. And so there could also be some privacy issues with the information that they're putting into this portfolio manager platform. And so then lastly, there was a question or a request to remove the $50 per violation fine within the ordinance. And so city staff took a look at what other communities had done who have these similar ordinances. And so we looked at 15 communities. All of them have some level of fine within the ordinance. In some cases, it's not specified, but they do recognize that they will do some level of fine. A lot of them actually have the practice of waiving or being very lenient on the first year that a building has to comply. And so they may have a fine written into the ordinance, but their main goal is compliance, as ours is. And so they work very closely with those buildings if they're making a good faith effort to comply with the ordinance, rather than just saying, yeah, you missed the deadline, now we're going to fine you. And so city staff have taken a look at what it would be like to just remove, if we just remove that $50 fine. And so there is a general penalty clause within the city code, which has a range of a $20 to a $750 per day fine. And so that's also pretty hefty. And so what city staff would like to recommend is, instead of the $50 per violation, which is a per day fine, that we actually look at doing a $100 per month fine. So that's actually less. It ends up being a smaller potential annual fine than what the general penalty does, and it's also significantly lower than the $50 per violation that was in the original draft ordinance. And within that $100 per month fine, there's also a hearing process. And so, again, it still wouldn't just be the process of, oh, you missed your reporting deadline, now we're going to fine you. There would be the opportunity for buildings to come and say, hey, we're actually working on this, we need a little bit more support, and then we would be able to work with them. So that's all I have this evening. Questions?
I have one. You mentioned, I think you said FOIA Manager. Is that the online software?
It's called, it's the U.S. EPA's Portfolio Manager.
Portfolio Manager. I'm sorry, I misheard you. You've been on that website. I mean, what would you say is the time for compliance that would take for, I mean, granted, it kind of depends on the scope of the holdings of the company, et cetera, but I mean, how long just to fill out the form in general?
So actually just setting up our property is probably, so I've been doing the benchmarking process for our city-owned facilities. We're doing it for our largest buildings, and just signing up for an account can take you just a few minutes.
Sure.
Actually looking through and putting in the type of data that you would need and information you would need to be able to get some good information back and comply with the ordinance. We believe for a first-time complier that could take 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 hours, depending on their experience. Not
just for one property, or
not necessarily per property. That's just to learn what the interface looks like. Since we're doing 17 properties at the moment, it took me 3 to 4 hours just watching a few training videos and talking to some other folks that had experience with it to learn how to just input that initial data. The thing that could take a little bit longer is if the person who's doing that registration process or putting that information in doesn't know that information. Because if so, then they would have to spend a little bit more time collecting that information. And that's one area where the support from USGBC can be very helpful, is because they can call and talk to someone or drop into some office hours to say, hey, I don't actually know where to find this information. Can you give me a hand?
Alderman Rainey?
Give us an idea of what kind of information they wouldn't know. That they would, I mean, if they're sitting in a management office with the property portfolio under the jurisdiction of people in the management office, what kind of information wouldn't they know how to find?
Right. So because portfolio manager has specific definitions in it, for example, their definition of the gross square footage of a building may be slightly different than what a property manager may have written down for what an architect said their building square footage was. So that's one example of a piece of information they may need to, just read through that definition, make sure they're including a couple of the caveats that may be in there.
How about another one?
Another one may be, if it's an office building, the operating hours for it. And so if they have multiple tenants and they have different operating hours.
They answer that.
So portfolio manager recommends that you essentially take an average, and so they could reach out to the buildings the businesses within the building to get an idea of that. That's what we do for city facilities and then another one is the number of FTEs that are on the main shift for the building. And so again, you kind of have to take an average. I mean, even with city facilities, our operating hours for the Civic Center start at a different time than when the majority of the employees are here, and then we have night meetings. And so it really is just, each property manager is going to know sort of to the best of their knowledge what that average is or what the usage is within their own building. And so we've done the same thing where we've looked at it and said, okay, well, we have a pretty good idea based on what we know happens within the Civic Center, for example.
Further questions? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you staying here. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
So we are adjourned.